What I became was the proponent of embedding it in a time and place, And I put in that scene where with the farmer, where the farmer's house has been foreclosed by the bank, because it was part of the absurdity, the economic absurdity of the times.
I got pants on. I actually did the first take of this without any pants, and I just couldn't do it. My lip kept going, because I got no confidence without any pants on. You gotta have pants to have confidence, I think. Bonnie and Clyde is this weirdo, eccentric movie from the 60s that's so good, Spike Lee put it on his list of 100 essential movies for filmmakers to watch. It's supposedly the first film to kick off the new Hollywood era, and best of all, it inspired this super dope track.
Écoutez l'histoire de Bonnie and Clyde.
There are going to be a few spoilers ahead, but I want to encourage you to stick around anyway, because, well, it's just not that kind of movie. It doesn't really matter if you know everything that happens. I actually think it's better knowing everything, because the first time I watched this movie, I wasn't really all that into it, and it was only the second time, once I knew everything that was coming, that I was able to sort of just relax and enjoy the movie for what it was. I remember in college, one of my lecturers described filmmaking in a way that kind of stuck with me. He described it as a kind of seduction. And to him, that means you peel away a layer of clothing and there's another layer under that. And you peel that away and there's just one more layer. And when you finally get to peel that layer away, there's just one more layer of clothing. And you just never get to the bottom. You just keep peeling away layers and you never get to the bottom. Seduction. Now that is just vague enough that it could apply to almost anything. And I found myself thinking about that a lot now the second time watching this movie. The movie opens with Bonnie, played by Faye Dunaway, just closed up in her room, totally naked, putting on lipstick and like staring at herself in the mirror and just absolutely bored to death. Bored in a way that we can only dream of in 2018. It's this like horrible, like restless kind of frustrated kind of boredom. I can only remember feeling that bored as a child. Now, at this point in my life, I don't think I've ever been that bored. There's this atmospheric sound in the background. It sounds kind of like an old clock downstairs far away somewhere in the house, just ticking really loudly. And it turns out to be some kind of factory thing somewhere in town, and you can hear this ticking all through the entire neighborhood. And it just gives it this feeling like in the entire world, nothing is happening. Time just is passing and there's nothing to do. And that's how the movie starts. And it's not even like 2 minutes before she looks down out of her window and sees Clyde trying to steal her mom's car.
Hey, boy! What you doing with my mama's car?
And this is where the seduction really gets going. It's this really weird little first meeting, and they're learning little things about each other, but they're also hiding little things about each other. They're obviously keeping little secrets. As they're walking into town together, there's these funny little moments where Clyde offers to take off his shoes and show her where he chopped off his toes. It's like a gross thing, but at the same time, it's like a weird, backhanded kind of offer to undress in front of her. And obviously, this leads up to probably the most famous innuendo in film history ever, where Clyde shows Bonnie his great big gun. She touches it and she wants to see him use it. He robs a convenience store. I don't know if they called them convenience stores back then. They drive away in a getaway car, and right when you expect things are getting really heated and they seem like they're about to do it, and they don't. They stop just shy of going all the way.
Your advertising is just dandy. Folks never guess you don't have a thing to sell.
This has a lot to do with how things look from Bonnie's perspective. She's kind of seduced into this life of crime, and it's kind of the seduction that keeps her going. It's not actually that far in the movie before you see her right back where she was in the beginning, in that kind of discomforting restlessness. When she's in the life of crime, you see her excited and she seems like, oh, she's happy. And it's like just a little bit of that before she's, restless again. Her relationship with Clyde is this kind of childish, naive thing. And if you've seen 10 movies I love, then you'll know that's kind of a thing for me, that childish naiveness. Clyde starts off seeming really smart and really cool, like he knows what's up, But it's not long before you realize this guy doesn't know anything. He sucks at robbing banks. The first bank they rob is a bank that's been closed for 3 weeks, so they don't have any money. But this doesn't actually make him less sexy to Bonnie. It's actually part of the seduction. It's just another layer. She's learning a little bit more about Clyde. And I don't think that's really what she wants from Clyde in any case. He's like her ticket to an adventurous life, to a life that's not so boring. One of the best moments in the movie is when Bonnie tries to escape. She's done with the life of crime and she tries to run away back home. When Clyde catches up to her, he says the perfect thing.
Please, honey, don't never leave me without saying nothing.
If he'd said, don't ever leave me, that could have been too much. If he'd said, why didn't you say anything? That could have come off as aggressive, In this short little scene, they just struck every note just perfectly. The tone is just right. When a movie gets all of these fine little details just right, it's like filmic magic happening right in front of you. A lot of the movie is just really perfect little set pieces that are just nicely tied together. The rest of the Barrow gang eventually joins up with them. That's Clyde Barrow's brother, Buck Barrow, and his wife, Blanche Barrow.
Hi. Hello.
Played by Gene Hackman and Estelle Parsons. And they actually have some of my favorite performances in the movie. Gene Hackman he's just got a lot of energy. And I think a lot of people think that that's kind of easy, but not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that much energy to do a performance that way.
We're going to have ourselves a time, boy! We surely are. Woo! What are we going to do?
But my favorite performance in that scene is actually Estelle Parsons, Blanche Barrow. She's sitting in the car as Buck and Clyde are having their meetup and getting all noisy, and you can see she's just kind of not cool with all the stuff that's going on, the crime and stuff, but she doesn't want to be a buzzkill. And it's this really funny, just a simple little conflicted performance that she's got, and it's just so funny. It just always gets a giggle out of me. The film got like 10 Oscar nominations, and the only wins they got were 1 for the cinematography, which is killer, obviously, and 2 for Estelle Parsons playing Blanche Barrow. Although I guess they probably gave her the Academy Award for, the more emotional scenes later on. But for me, this is the stuff that hits home. These perfect little funny, conflicted moments. Back to the seduction. Is this how you seduce people? I mentioned that I think sound plays a big part in that whole restless feeling where everything feels really dead silence. And to make things feel dead silent like that is actually not as easy as you think. You can't just take all the sound out of the scene. You have to have actually quite a lot of sound. You need to be able to hear very, very soft sounds very clearly. And that's what gives the scene this kind of dead silent feeling. And this movie has that. You can hear even the slightest breeze, the smallest thing. You can see their hair is barely even moving, but that breeze sounds like it's roaring because there's nothing else that's making noise in this whole movie world. Just that slight breeze, that's it.
Bank took it.
But then when they do their first robbery, there's this musical cue, and it's this really fast, upbeat banjo. And it's really exciting. It's kind of a specific cue to get you to feel like The story is kicking off. This is it. You don't have to feel bored and restless anymore. The story's kicking off. We're going somewhere. Bonnie has this little epiphany near the end of the movie where she kind of realizes what she's been seduced into.
When we started out, I thought we was really going somewhere. But this is it. We're just going, huh?
It's like that surreal loop where you just keep peeling back the layers and you never get to the bottom. It's just more and more restlessness. In another scene also very close to the end, Bonnie and Clyde are sitting together reading one of Bonnie's poems in the newspaper, and Clyde thanks her for telling his story. You know, now he's had his story told. And they make out on the blanket. And there's that music cue again. It's with the newspaper blowing off in the wind, rather than being with Bonnie and Clyde. And then that ending.
Hey.
We might not really be able to imagine what it must have been like to see an ending as violent as that in 1967. So audiences at that point were actually used to shootouts in movies being kind of a bloodless thing. People would just get shot and then, fall down, and there would never be any blood. This is the first time that they actually had blood exploding out of their bodies. So obviously audiences had some strong reactions to this. It's not as visceral to us in 2018. We're used to that kind of thing, but the blood is just one small part of it. This is still a pretty grim scene, and it still kind of turns my stomach upside down. And I don't think it has anything to do with the physical violence. It's kind of just the way it happens, you know? That kind of just makes you feel kind of sick and kind of nauseous.
Hey, what do you do anyhow?
I'm an undertaker.
Get them out of here.
I decided to review this movie for two main reasons. First one is that the first time I watched it, I didn't really enjoy it all that much, but I was kind of distracted and I wasn't really in a good mental state, and I felt like this movie maybe deserved a second look, and boy did it. The second reason is that this movie is very often listed as the movie to kick off the new Hollywood era. And if you love weirdo, eccentric movies, then you'll probably know the new Hollywood era is one of the best places to get them. They just have the best movies. There's a lot of really, really modern feeling stuff starting in 1967 with this movie and going all the way through the 70s. I don't know all the eras. I'm not a real film buff. But of all the eras that I do know, this one is my favorite. And so I've chosen Bonnie and Clyde for a reason. This is hopefully the beginning of something new and exciting on this channel. Things are about to get a lot more weirdo and eccentric. Thumbs up if you think that's a good idea.
Bonnie and Clyde. Alors voilà, Clyde a une petite amie. Elle est belle et son prénom c'est...
Bonnie.
The